Do you hate your story, your life story? You think about the direction of your life and the situations you're in, choices you've made, or the cards outside of your control that you were dealt, and you don't like it. Maybe you've had some high, big mountain moments. Now you're stuck in the valleys. You were up there, but now you're in the lows. I think each one of us had moments like that in life, but do you feel stuck in that place and you're not sure how to move forwards? See, I believe 4 stories that Pastor John's gonna share today, one which is very vulnerably out of his own life, they're gonna encourage you. You want a different story? Watch all the way through. I have a next step for you at the end. Welcome to church.
And all my life I've been carried by grace. Don't ask me how, 'cause I can't explain. It's nothing short of a miracle. I'm here. I've got some blessings that I don't deserve. I've got some scars, but that's how you learn. It's nothing short of a miracle. I'm here. I think it over and it doesn't add up. I know it comes from above. I've got miracles on miracles, a million little miracles. I've got miracles on miracles, count your miracles, 1, 2, 3, 4, I can't even count them all. You held me steady so I wouldn't give up. You opened doors that nobody could shut. I hope I never get over what you've done. I wanna live with an open heart. I wanna live like I know who you are. I hope I never get over what you've done. It's not coincidence and it's not luck. I know it comes from above, yeah. I've got miracles on miracles, a million little miracles. I've got miracles on miracles, count your miracles, 1, 2, 3, 4, I can't even count them all. Miracles on miracles, yeah. A million little miracles. I've got miracles on miracles, count your miracles, 1, 2, 3, 4, I can't even count them all. And I can't even count them all.
Well, hey, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us this weekend with our online campus. We are starting a brand new series this week. It's going to be a 2-week series called Rewrite. And before I start, let me encourage you. If you missed the last series from Pastor Dan called Bigger Than We and Me, I want you to go back and watch it, because what we're going to do in this short 2-week series builds on that foundation. Now, last week, Pastor Dan talked about us being the light of the world and shining bright for Christ in a world that has plummeted into darkness. What I want to do this weekend in this first message in this series is I want to help each of us tap into our God-given power and use the power of our own story so that we can help others do the same. So let's get into it. Well, many of you are familiar with this passage from Genesis chapter 1, starting in verse 26, where God said, "Let us make man in our image, according to our likeness. They will rule the fish of the sea, the birds of the sky, the livestock, the whole earth, and the creatures that crawl on the earth." So God created man in his own image. He created him in the image of God. He created them male and female. God blessed them, and God said to them, "Be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, and subdue it." See, here's what these passages tell us. God created us with infinite value. And regardless of your background, your race, your educational status, I want you to know today that you bear the image of Almighty God. The psalmist in Psalm 8 reflects on this same idea in light of all of God's creation. The psalmist said, "When I observe your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars which you set in place, what is a human being that you remember him, a son of man that you look after him? You made him a little less than God and crowned him with glory and honor. You made him ruler over the works of your hands. You put everything under his feet." So whatever somebody looks into your eyes or touches you in a very tangible way, they are looking into and touching the creator of the universe. Why? Because you are a reflection of him. There's great power in bearing God's image, and we are called to be fruitful, to subdue the earth and rule. And the reality is, God has a purpose for each and every one of us. So the question becomes, how do I take hold of this power and begin to live it out in such a way that it not only changes my life, but has the power to change lives around me? You see, this is one of the great ways that God works in the world. He works in so many different ways. But this one way that he works is that you and I are blessed to be a blessing. We are saved so that we can partner with our Creator to expand his salvation in the earth. He loved us so we can love him and love others in return. Now, the Apostle Paul continues on this idea that we're blessed to be a blessing in 2 Corinthians chapter 5, starting in verse 17, where he said, "This means that anyone who belongs to Christ, anyone who belongs to Christ, has become a new person. The old life is gone. A new life has begun." And all of this is a gift from God who brought us back to himself through Christ. And God has given us the task of reconciling people to him. Here at Pure Heart, one of our core values is that we are becoming like Jesus for the sake of others. So here's how I want to frame this core value in the context of this message and also in this short 2-week series. We want to rewrite the story or the script of your own life, and then we want to be able to help others rewrite the story or script of their lives. And to do this, we're going to look at 3 different instances in the book of Mark, stories about people, ordinary people, who interact with Jesus. We're going to look at a leper, a paralytic, and a tax collector. And what we're going to see is that they interact with Jesus, and when they interact with Jesus, something happens. Jesus intervenes in their life, and the scripts of their life are rewritten. Way back in 1986, my senior year of high school, I auditioned for and I was cast in the lead role of our school musical as P.T. Barnum. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I had an absolute blast playing the role of P.T. Barnum, and quite honestly, I was a little bit surprised that Hugh Jackman didn't call me for advice when The Greatest Showman came out a few years ago. But anyway, I digress. When I got the part, I was handed this massive script because this character had a lot of stage time. So I had a lot to learn. I had to learn my lines, my dialogue, the songs that went with the show, stage blocking, etc. I may have had just a little bit of flexibility in character development, but the truth was I was bound to that script. Everything that I was supposed to say, sing, and do was in that script, and it was handed to me as if they were saying to me, hey, John, here's your part, play it well. So as we read these three stories from the book of Mark, I want you to think of this. Each of these three people were handed a script of how they were going to live their lives. But Jesus intervenes. He takes the script of their life and he rewrites it. And in doing so, he changes the trajectory of their lives. And you and I, ladies and gentlemen, we're no different. And we're going to talk about this as the message goes on. We've been handed a script. And when we come to Jesus and we allow him to do so, he intervenes and he rewrites the script of how we are going to live our lives. As we live out of that new script, here's what happens. We emerge and we begin to help other people rewrite the script of their lives that has been handed to them. We become like Jesus for the sake of others. So let's dive into these stories. In Mark chapter 1, starting in verse 40, let's look at this instance. Then a man with leprosy came to him and on his knees begged him, if you are willing, you can make me clean. Moved with compassion, Jesus reached out his hand and touched him. I am willing, he told him, be made clean. And immediately the leprosy left him and he was made clean. A few verses later, in chapter 2, starting in verse 1 of Mark's gospel, we look at the story of the paralytic. When he entered Capernaum again after some days, it was reported that he was at home. So many people gathered together that there was no more room, not even in the doorway, and he was speaking the word to them. They came to him bringing a paralytic carried by 4 of them. Since they were not able to bring him to Jesus because of the crowd, they removed the roof above him, and after digging through it, they lowered the mat on which the paralytic was lying. Seeing their faith, Jesus told the paralytic, son, your sins are forgiven. Skipping down in verse 11, Jesus continues, I tell you, get up, take your mat, and go home. Immediately he got up, took the mat, and went out in front of everyone. As a result, they were all astounded and gave glory to God, saying, we have never seen anything like this. And then there's our third story, starting in chapter 2, verse 13. Jesus went out again beside the sea. The whole crowd was coming to him, and he was teaching them. Then passing by, he saw Levi, the son of Alphaeus, sitting at the tax office. And he said to him, follow me. And he got up and followed him. 3 stories, 3 distinct moments, but yet that's showing us the same result. Jesus intervenes and rewrites the script of their life. The first story we read was about a leper, and this leper came to Jesus and fell on his knees before him. Now, physically, his body is ravaged by this disease. He's fearful. He's unworthy. And what we really need to understand is that there were laws in that culture of how lepers were supposed to act in public. When they entered a village, they had to cover themselves up, and they had to literally walk through that village crying out, unclean, unclean, to let everybody know that they had been infected with this highly infectious, contagious disease. They couldn't cut their hair. They couldn't interact with people. Their physical life was absolutely ruined. Beyond that, they were social misfits. They never experienced human touch. They lived spiritually isolated because they were not able to go into the synagogue. They had to live outside, away from the rest of the community, cut off from family, never being affirmed. That was the script that this leper was living out. But as we saw, Jesus intervenes and rewrites the story of his life, helping this man discover his God-given power. Stop and think about this. Jesus reached out his hand, touched him, spoke over his life, and the man was instantly healed. I mean, in a moment's time, the script of his life was completely flipped, and he was given a new life. This paralyzed man also had a script that he was living out of. He was dependent on others. I mean, this is another desperate situation where 4 friends had to get him to Jesus, and their desperation was so great, they dug through and tore off a roof so that they could lower him down to be in the presence of Jesus. Now, much like the leper in his experience in those days, if you were paralyzed, it was because you sinned. Somewhere in your life, you sinned, and it caused your situation to be what it was. If you think about this, here's a man who could not work. If he had a family, he wasn't able to provide for them. His friendships, his family relationships, they're all estranged. He's spiritually shunned because he's viewed as one who has sinned and brought this condition upon himself. I mean, emotionally, can you imagine living like this day after day, year after year? His life had been scripted a certain way. But once again, Jesus intervenes. But this time something interesting happens. This time Jesus says, your sins are forgiven you. Because Jesus knew that the true disease was not in this man's physical sickness, but in his relationship with God. Jesus knew that a diseased soul is worse than a diseased body. So he forgives him, and then he heals him. And once again, we see Jesus rewriting the script, and this man's life is immediately transformed. Well, then there's Levi, also known as Matthew, the tax collector. Without a doubt, he was the most hated man in town. Now, I don't think there's any truth to the rumor that he's one of the 87,000 new IRS agents that are getting ready to be hired. But nevertheless, tax collectors in those days, they worked for the state, they worked for Rome, and this was an incredibly lucrative business. I mean, these guys were basically multi-level tax farmers who had a lot of latitude with what and how they taxed. And the reality was, as long as Rome got their percentage, the tax collectors could really charge whatever they wanted. And then if you didn't pay, they'd just turn you over to Rome and then let the state deal with you. The tax collectors were so hated by the Jewish people. They actually had their own category, and we see this throughout the New Testament, where there were sinners, and then there were tax collectors. It's like they weren't even worthy to be considered in the same sentence as sinners. And so as a result, this business drew a very rotten kind of person. So Matthew was a ruthless, self-absorbed man cut off from decent society, and tax collectors were also banned from the synagogues, as were their families. In fact, the rabbis in that day wrote of tax collectors, they said this, and I'm quoting, "For tax collectors, repentance is almost impossible." Beyond that, if a tax collector entered your house, you and your whole house were considered to be unclean. Now that is Matthew's script. I love this so much. Then Jesus intervenes. Jesus sees him, and then he speaks to him. I mean, no holy and loving God would do this, but Jesus, God in the flesh, does exactly that. And then he invites Matthew to be part of his inner circle. I mean, can you imagine Peter and John's response? Because they all lived in the same time. Like, listen, Jesus, we know this guy. We know his reputation. We know what he's capable of. You want to bring him into our inner circle? And Jesus does exactly that. And then, if that's not enough, Jesus goes to his house later on that day with a bunch of other tax collecting friends of Matthew, and they have a big party. So you have the leper, the paralytic, and the tax collector. Jesus intervenes and rewrites their story. And the beauty of it is it's instantaneous. But now comes the difficult part. Because the difficult part for the leper, the paralytic, and Matthew, the tax collector, is now they have to walk out and they have to live the rest of their lives out of this new script that Jesus has handed to them. See, here's the reality, ladies and gentlemen. Saying yes to Jesus is easy. Discipleship is difficult. Living out of the new script is not easy. And here's why. I don't know what was going on inside of these three men, the leper, the paralytic, and the tax collector, but I guarantee you, they had false internalized beliefs about themselves. They probably believed some of these things, and maybe you can relate to some of these. They may have believed, I don't have a right to even explore or assert my God-given power, the image of God inside of me. I'm defective. I was a mistake. I'm a burden. I'm unlovable. I'm stupid. I'm worthless. I don't belong. My worth is connected to my intelligence or my position. I have to be approved by certain people in order to be okay. I don't have the right to exist or to say what I think. See, ladies and gentlemen, we can be Christ followers for a very long time, and we can know all of the verses in our head, and we can believe deeply that none of these things are true, but for some reason internally, there's still something inside of us that believes these things about ourselves. Why? Because somewhere, sometime in our life, and I don't know when or where that happened, we were handed a script. And no matter what we tell ourselves, we still act it out. We still believe it. We find ourselves stuck and unable to really become more like Jesus for the sake of others. Why? Because we're living out of the wrong script. And I meet so many Christians and non-Christians who are like the leper or the paralytic or the tax collector, and they carry these same type of messages throughout their life. See, this rewriting of our script is something that is designed to go and flow all the way through us. It's something that Jesus wants to go deep. You see, as we said earlier, when we come to Jesus, we are a new creation in Christ, and we've been given this ministry of reconciliation, but now we start walking out this new script. We start living out of this new script, and Jesus says, I'm glad that you came to me. I'm glad that you said yes, but we're going to start undoing all the years of stuff, all the years that you've lived out of the wrong script. And as we dive into this and we unearth all this stuff, you're going to start becoming more like me. The good news is, ladies and gentlemen, you don't have to live out of the old script of your life anymore. There's a brand new script that Jesus has that he wants you to live out of. Now, as a pastor, I have seen so many who have been damaged by sin to such an extent that they carry these things around in their life and they're unable to break free. And I've often asked myself, where do these wrong scripts, where do these unhealthy scripts come from? Well, there's several different ways that they come to us. They come to us from our families. Our families of origin are the most powerful group to which we will ever belong. And some families had the script that they were giving out that you only have worth if you perform, and your family was never able to take pleasure in you just for the basis of who you are, but maybe only for what you do. You got to behave in a certain way to gain approval, and then because of that script, you end up living a life that isn't really you. And we're told by people who study these type of things that from the ages of 0 to 15, the first 15 years of our life, we accumulate millions of miles of film footage of our life. And we take this film footage that we've accumulated over the first 15 years of our life, and we wind up living out of a script. If we're not careful and we're not letting Jesus hand us the script of our life, we start living out of a script that isn't the life that God has for us. Maybe it was a situation where you came out of an abusive life that deeply damaged you. Abuse of any kind, physical, sexual, emotional, verbal, they do damage to your inner wiring, and that abuse that you may have experienced handed you a script, and you've been living your life out of that script. Maybe you've experienced racism or sexism over many years, and you've been treated as a second-class citizen, and because of that and being continually put down by others, you find it very hard for you to raise up and embrace the new script and live out of your God-given power. Maybe you were bullied as a child. Maybe even you grew older, and much like Matthew, the tax collector, the script that you're living out of was a result of your own choices, bad decisions that you made, and you carry the weight of those choices with you, believing that there's no other way because this is just the way it is. You know, the media has also a very profound effect of handing us a script, because media projects to us the message that if you aren't fill in the blank, whatever that is, you don't have the right to your personal God-given power. Maybe you're an immigrant and you don't speak the language. I mean, I can relate to this in some level because of the mission trips that I've gone on over the years. I was recently in Brazil, where the language is Portuguese, and I got to be honest with you guys, I felt completely lost at times because there was conversation going on all around me, and I couldn't understand any words that they were saying, trying to communicate and whatnot. It's very, very frustrating, but that has handed you a script, and you've lived out of that. Maybe you had a disability that you've had to live out of your entire life, maybe much like some that we read about in the stories that we looked at in Mark's gospel. One of the things that I really think contributes to handing us these negative false scripts is bad biblical teaching. We place so much emphasis, if we're not careful, and maybe you've been in a church experience where the emphasis was always on the fact that you were just a sinner, and it was just heaped down upon you, guilt and shame and condemnation and that teaching. And while I believe that we are sinners in need of a Savior, there was never a balance maybe in your situation that taught you that you are indeed created in the image of God, that there's something inside of you that is beautiful and gorgeous. See, we live out of these scripts wherever they came from. And even though you've come to Christ, there might be some of you watching this message this weekend and you're still living out of the old script. Can I just encourage you that it is time for you to grab a hold of the truth that you are made in God's image with a purpose, and inside of you there is something beautiful that's just waiting to be unleashed, a new script that's not only going to change your life, but it's going to help others rewrite their story. Now, I may not have even mentioned the source of your negative script, but whatever that source is, it takes great courage to look at it honestly. And I don't want to just blow past this part of the message and discount the fact, ladies and gentlemen, that there are powers of darkness that are at work in our world. And they sometimes work through people. They work through institutions and churches to keep us from living out of the script that Jesus wants to give us, and then help others rewrite their scripts. And you feel this intense warfare that's going on. You so desperately want to get free and get rid of and shed this old script and embrace the new script that Jesus had for you. But yet you feel this intense warfare. Why is it? Because the enemy knows that if you get free, a lot of other people are going to get free as well. And it's by faith that we exert our God-given power and we start living life differently. But I have to warn you, when you start down this road and you say yes to Jesus and you allow him to hand you a new script, it might be a little uncomfortable at first. Can you imagine what life was like for the leper or the paralytic or Levi the tax collector? I mean, let's just take Matthew. He now has relationships in his life. It's like never before. All of a sudden, I've got a circle of people that we're all going in the same direction here. We're all following Jesus. He's learning to trust, probably for the first time in his life. I mean, Yeah, he's probably got to deal with some whispers from the community. Well, who does he think he is? What's he want? What's his angle? He's living out of a whole new script. And if you listen and really read and lean into the rest of Matthew's story, he spends 3.5 years with Jesus, shares some of the most intimate moments with Christ, hearing his teaching, watching him perform the miracles. He becomes an eyewitness to the death and resurrection of Christ. And then he writes what becomes the first book of the New Testament, known as Matthew's Gospel. He had to learn how to live out of a new script. And I'm sure it felt strange for him. It'll feel strange because at first you're not used to it. More used to living leprous or paralyzed and dishonest rather than living free as God intended. I mean, it's like this. You hear these type of stories where people that have been incarcerated and been in prison for long periods of time, when they are set free, they struggle with their freedom, because they become so used to what life is like on the inside, what life is like in their confinement, living within that particular script that they have. Many who are incarcerated, they wonder to themselves, if I get out, what am I going to do? How am I going to function? And there are many people that I've met, quite honestly, they are afraid to get out of the old negative script that they've been living their lives out of. Now, how do we grow into this? There's got to be a way. The reality is we have to get rooted in our faith. We've got to get spiritually and emotionally healthy. And there is no shortcut to rewriting our script other than doing the hard work of discipleship. And wherever you're at and wherever you're watching, I would really encourage you. You need to find a place where you can get plugged in, rooted in your faith, and begin to grow. Surround yourself with other people. Get yourself a community of people who can help you live out of the new script of your life. Well, hey everybody, I'm here with Pastor Dan, and we are so excited to announce that this fall, as a church, we are going all in with a discipleship process called Rooted. Now, Dan, what is it about Rooted that bumped your heart in a way that you said, hey, let's go all in, when we as a church, we haven't done anything like this in a really long time?
Well, that's part of the issue. And in the last couple of years, I've watched so many people struggling with what does it really mean to walk with Jesus? Besides all that, we have so many new people who come to faith in Jesus. This is going to give a foundation for those who are new in their relationship with Christ. It's also going to help people who have been walking with Jesus for a while who maybe are struggling with a little bit of apathy right now to get fired up again. 7 foundational principles on what it means to walk with Jesus. It's going to be so good for us.
It is going to be good. And these 7 foundational principles is done over a 10-week experience, and it's designed to help us connect with God, the church, and our purpose. Rooted is done in groups, which we really believe in getting out of rows and into circles. And we're going to do this both on campus and with our off-campus crews. So, Dan, let me ask you, why is it so important for us to do discipleship in community?
First of all, you need a safe place to where you can be real and talk about what's going on in your life. You can't do that sitting in rows.
Right.
You can't turn to your neighbor on Sunday and go, can I really tell you what's going on in my life? And until you know you're fully known, right? Somebody really knows you.
Sure.
You've got to question, am I really loved? Am I really accepted? Do I really belong here? In community, you can answer that question, do I matter? And besides that, people see things I don't see. And if I depend on just myself and my growth in Christ, obviously I have the relationship with the Holy Spirit.
So true.
But then God's Spirit to other people can point things out in His Word that I may not catch. So you're going to show me some things that I'm not going to see in my own perspective, so we can grow better together than we can by ourselves. Come on,
awesome.
somebody, let's
it.
go. All right.
Yeah. So we launch Wednesday, September 14th. Now, if you're going to do Rooted on campus, I got good news for you. Childcare is available, and these on-campus groups are going to run.
Olivia can come to that?
Olivia can
Okay.
come. Yeah, absolutely.
Sounds great.
That it's going to be Wednesdays all the way through November 16th. We're going to get you done by Thanksgiving from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. Now, our off-campus Heart Crews, they will run during their regular crew times, but we're all coming together on Wednesday, September 14th. And the cost, it's only $15, which covers your book, which is incredible to me.
$15
Yeah.
to grow in Jesus. You're going to spend that at Starbucks. You're going to spend that at Dutch Bros. You're going to go over to Chick-fil-A and spend that in just one value meal. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I know.
It's a really good price. Really
Yeah,
good price.
totally.
Here's the deal, Pure Heart family. I'm also really excited about the on-campus piece.
Me too.
Especially if you're not in a crew right now. You're like, hey, I don't have to go try to find that. you can gather with us on campus, meet some people around a table, and launch a crew. It's going to be very, very good.
Absolutely.
So here's what we're going to do, Pure Heart. We are all going to get involved. Every one of us are going to
All
dive
of us.
deeply in this. So you can sign up. You can register at pureheart.org/rooted.
September 14th. Can't wait to see you there.
Let's go, Pure Heart.
All right. The last part of this message before I wrap it up, I would love to share just a little bit of my own journey with this and living out of the wrong script. The script was handed to me at a very early age. I spent a great deal of time when I was very small with my maternal grandparents, who have since gone on to heaven, but their influence on my life was profound. And they handed me a script that if I performed well enough, I would get the applause of others. If I did the right things, I would receive love. The message I got from them was that love is conditional. But again, if I did all the right things, people would love me more, people would embrace me, and I would gain the applause of others. I have a very vivid memory when I was about 3 or 4 years old. Little church that my dad pastored here in the greater Phoenix area, a small church. My grandmother was doing what we would call now kids' church. Back then they called it like junior church or something like that. It doesn't really matter. But I remember this vividly. She grabbed me, held me, and she sat me up on a piano bench. And she said to the rest of the people in the room, Jonathan's gonna sing for us. And I don't even know what I sang. That day could have been Jesus Loves Me, This I Know, for the Bible Tells Me So, or one of those wonderful children's songs. But I sang that song, and at the end of it, the entire room broke out in applause. And I remember as a real small boy, how great that applause felt. And what I didn't realize was that I was being handed a script, that the more that I performed and the harder I worked, the more that I would receive the applause and the affirmation and the approval of others. And I lived for many, many years out of that script. I went into ministry out of that script. And so I worked very, very hard. I tried my best to perform to the best of my ability. And my motives at its core were pure, because I really did want to please God and fulfill my calling. But there was something down inside of me that wanted the applause of people. Earlier in the message, I mentioned the role that I played as P.T. Barnum my senior year of high school. And I'll never forget this. The last night of the show, we ran for 4 nights. And after the curtain call was given and all of the applause died down, I went off stage right, and I sat down and I cried like a baby because it was over. And I so enjoyed the applause of people that I couldn't bear to see that go away. And so for much of my life, I did everything that I could do to try to gain the approval of others. But in doing so, I was giving away my God-given power. I was living out unwritten messages. Here's what I did not understand. And this is the verse, ladies and gentlemen, that changed my life. When I got this revelation deep down inside of my spirit, it changed everything. This was my moment where Jesus flipped the script of my life. I read the words of Matthew 3:16 and 17. When Jesus was baptized, he went up immediately from the water. The heavens suddenly opened for him, and he saw the Spirit of God descending like a dove and coming down on him. And a voice from heaven said, "This is my beloved Son, with whom I am well pleased." I want to tell you why that passage spoke so deeply to my life and why it was the script flipping moment of my life. Because at that point in Jesus' life, he had not done one thing in ministry. He had not performed one miracle, not opened one blinded eye, not raised one person from the dead, not fed the multitudes. He had done nothing as far as ministry was concerned. And yet in this moment, in this holy moment, when we see this beautiful picture of the heavens opening up and the Spirit of God descending down upon him, and the voice from heaven, the Father, the creator of the universe, bestows his favor by simply saying, "This is my son, and in him I am well pleased." And Jesus was able to live out his ministry with the script that said, "You are chosen, you are beloved, you are my son, and in you I am well pleased." See, I had to allow Jesus to rewrite the script of my life. And I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, it changed everything. It changed how I love. It changed my marriage. It changed the way that I do ministry. It changed the way that I view money and life. It changed everything. And in many ways, I'm still rewriting my script by the grace of God. You know what I hope becomes your life story, your life script, your testimony from this day forward? Where you start to believe it is good that I exist. Where you believe I am made in God's image. I am made distinct from everyone else. I am worthy of God's highest value. I'm worthy to be paid attention to by my Heavenly Father. I am good enough, and my Heavenly Father loves me right where I am. I can make mistakes and not be perfect and still be loved by God. And I'm entitled to exert my God-given power in this world in a loving and respectable way. And here's the beauty of it, ladies and gentlemen. As all of us begin to see Jesus intervene in our life, begin to take those negative scripts, replace it with his script, begin to rewrite our story, then and only then can we move to help others rewrite their story. And the beauty of it is it doesn't make any difference of your age. You can be a child, you can be in junior high, you can be in high school, you can be in college, you can be in your early adult years or in your senior years, your middle adult years, whatever, it makes no difference. You can help someone rewrite their story. And my encouragement to you this weekend is to hear the voice of your Heavenly Father. It is good that you exist. You are my beloved son. You are my beloved daughter. I delight in you. And God has chosen to do his work in this world through us because there are so many people that are crying out to have their stories rewritten. They're looking for somebody to come and speak life in the midst of death. How empowering is that for us? It's empowering us as God's people to live a whole new life and then to move out with our testimony to see people set free by the one who set us free. In fact, this is the gospel, that Jesus takes lepers and paralytics and tax collectors and turns them into sons and daughters of the faith who help other people rewrite their story. So let's ask God to lead us as we rewrite the story of our lives and help others to do the same.
So good, right? So, what story have you or others written in your life that needs rewritten? What lies have you told yourself that you want to replace with God's truth? Is your story pushing you forwards, or do you feel you're being pushed back? You're stuck. Changing our narrative, sometimes one of the hardest things that we can do because it's wrapped up in our habits and beliefs. But it's important to let God change that in our life. Maybe you're someone that you've already gone through a process of God rewriting a lot of your story. But then you see some people around you and their story needs rewritten and you go, I wish I could help, but I'm just not far enough along to probably help somebody else. And that's a lie we tell ourselves. Let me show you why. I think of 3 people climbing a mountain, right? The strongest climber, he makes it to the top first of that mountain. The other 2, they're on the side of the mountain, and one of them finally gets over a ledge, a tough ledge. The one right below him starts slipping and they need help. Who's in the best position to help the lowest one? Probably the one who was the closest, right? Not the one at the top. See, don't let the story of your failure or inadequacies stop you from helping the ones you see in need. And lastly, if you've never made a commitment to God, rewriting your story, but you want to do that today, would you join me in prayer? God, I can't do this on my own. I've messed up my story. I want you to come and be the author of my story. Be the leader of my life. I admit that I've been wrong in the way I've written my life story. I've gone against the way you want my story written. I accept Jesus Christ into my life and say that I want him to be the leader of my life. I pray this all in the name of Jesus. Amen. If you prayed that prayer, we would love to hear from you. But I would just want to say this. One of the best ways I found for God to rewrite the story of my life, and I'm still in process of this, is prayer. That's why we want to keep prayer as one of the key heart values of Pure Heart. And there's so many ways that we walk in this at this church, but I want to encourage you in a couple of them that I think might be helpful. Wednesday prayer nights. If you live in the Phoenix area, we have prayer gathering on the Peoria campus. We pray for one another, for families of Pure Heart, for communities around the corner, around the world, people who have health challenges that get ministered to. There's words of truth and encouragement spoken to help rewrite those lies that we can choose to live in, right? But then wherever you live, whether it's in Phoenix or somewhere else, you could join us on our Facebook Live prayer broadcast. We do it also on Wednesday nights, and this is not a show. This is where we encourage everybody to participate because we want to join in prayer together. This is an online church community. Let's lift up prayers from people all over the world, praying for them. Wednesday nights is about intercession for finances, mental, physical healing, our church's vision for revival, praying for tragedies and heartaches faced by members of our church family, challenges in our country and around the world. These are things we need to be praying for. And Wednesday nights are a crucial cornerstone of what our church has to be built on, which is prayer. Same for each of our lives. See, prayer's not just a one-time thing we're going to do. God, please change this situation. I need help. It's a conversation with our Father in heaven, a conversation that stirs in us, it stirs in others, his story for our lives. So that next step I talked about at the beginning. For 1 week, write down the parts of your story that you know need to be rewritten as they come to your mind. Write those down. And then go ahead and pray that God shows you the ones that kind of you're even blind to. Ask as you're in this process prayers from a friend or even from the Pure Heart prayer team, pureheart.org/prayer. Submit that as a prayer request. We would love to pray for you this. And as you're writing down these things, let God then speak truth to those lies. Let him show you how he wants you to rewrite those areas of your life. Do it for a week and then say, God, who do you want in my life to share this with to help me move forward so they can help prompt me on to continue to pray for me, to continue to encourage me. We don't want any of us to be stuck. Like we say at Pure Heart, it's okay to not be okay. It's not okay to pretend, and it's not okay to stay that way. It's not okay to stay stuck. We love you, Pure Heart family. We're so glad you joined us for the service today, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you so much for watching all the way through. We pray that this leaves you encouraged and ready to enter into another amazing week. Don't forget to connect with us via our online Connect card found on our website, pureheart.org, where you can give as well to the mission and vision of Pure Heart. Remember, it's okay not to be okay, but it's not okay to pretend, and it's not okay to stay stuck. We'll see you guys next weekend.